We are so excited to be here with you guys. I'm just like, this whole time waiting for us to present. I'm like, oh, I just want to present already. I just want to talk to everybody. And so thank you for being here. My name is Mikkel Wilcox, and this is my father, Lamont Wilcox. And we are a dynamic duo, if you will, of being able to help people.
So we're going to talk about mental health. And
who in here knows someone who struggles with mental health? Almost every person. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. How many have noticed that mental health struggles and issues have increased over time? Right? So I know our government screws up a lot, but they did one thing right. About 10 years or so ago, they started what's called the Brain Initiative. Anybody hear of that before? The Brain Initiative, yeah. We put, I think a couple of years I looked, we were at $950 million into the research of the brain, which is awesome because it provides tons and tons of research to understand and know more about what our brain's doing.
And about 500 pages of new research from the biggest universities in the world, like Yale and Stanford and all these places. They are giving out this information, but it takes 20 to 40 years for this information to get into the mainstream media and textbooks and schools. And so people aren't hearing about it, especially as fast as they need to hear about it, with mental health being such an issue nowadays.
Yeah, and they started the Brain Initiative because they were looking at the trajectory of mental health struggles, and it's exponential. You know what that means? It means in a while it's going to have this kind of a trajectory. And pretty soon, it's going to be everybody, and then we're not going to have a very functioning country. Like, that's where we're at. That's where we're headed. And the neuroscientists have been flooded with funding, and they've been able to gather a whole bunch of machines and technology and everything to research the brain. And here's the amazing thing. They figured it out. They figured it out. They figured out what's going on in our brains and what's causing all this stuff and all they know it. The problem is they are a whole huge group of spread out people, and there's not a great organization to all of their data. And so it's really hard for people to be pulling it in and actually coming to conclusions about that information. And I happen to have a life experience where me and those close to me really struggled with mental health problems and patterns in our brain that were getting in the way of the life that we wanted to live. And it was pretty extreme, and a lot of diagnosis, a lot of trying different therapies, different things like that. And this struggle got to the point where the pain drove me, right, to start to learn and study. And I started to learn and study about all this new science coming out and all this research that was coming out and these amazing things that people were presenting.
And it's so amazing having this group of people here, because you guys are the type of people who have open minds about so many different things that can help you besides the mainstream medicines and things like that. And homeopathy is so big here, and everyone can see and kind of have an open mind to hear new ideas, because he had been trying many different things. And if he didn't have an open mind, he wouldn't have been able to figure out what he did because of his experience. He was going through that pain and searching and searching and searching. And so we're here to tell you to never stop searching. And you are the type of person that doesn't stop searching, because you're here right now and you're searching and learning and growing.
Yeah, so it's a great group to be with. So thank you for being here. And I love that we get to have these kind of events that brings this type of people together. It's so exciting to me to run into people that have hope, that really believe that they can take actions and they can change things in themselves. And so, and the other side of that is that we all have this problem because we figure out and we learn things and then we try to teach them to someone else. How many has experienced that? But they don't listen. How many times do we see things in other people and we know you could, if you just did this or if you just did that, but you can't get them to do it.
And it's so funny because it's a lot easier to kind of decipher and see what someone else is stuck in, but it's a lot more difficult to see what you're stuck in and where you can change in your own patterns.
So I really started to dive into this and start to research. And I just happen to have this brain that loves to find new things and research, and it really lit me up. And so I really started going after it, and I started working on my own brain.
And he is an incessant researcher. Okay, we're talking 12 to 16 hours a day of just diving into all of this research about the brain and neuroscience.
And part of the driver behind it was the pain, right? I had a lot of things going on in my life that were really rough. And I was like, I've got to figure this out. And something just kept driving me. And I started to look into all these things that people do, how the brain works, how medications work in the brain, how all these methodologies that everybody uses, EMDR and yoga and breathing techniques and supplements and medication, all these different things. I tried to say, why aren't they working? Because of this trajectory is telling us that they're not really working. They might temporarily work. They might seem like they work for a little while. But if you look at the real research and you look at the percentages of how often those things work for the long term, it's really low, I'm afraid.
And so many times we're focusing on the symptoms of these issues and problems to fix what's going on, right? If we don't have energy, we think, okay, I need to get more sleep or I need to take medication. And we don't go inside and maybe see a different route of how to change those things. Instead of just treating the symptoms of what's going on, it can be a little bit deeper than that.
Who wants more energy? I'm just curious. All right. The neuroscientists know how energy, where it comes from, how it's made, and what makes that happen. And if you combine that with psychologists, they can tell you how to get more energy. And it's not that hard, actually. It's easier than you think. I used to be hypoglycemic. I had to eat every 2 hours. If I didn't, I would get these massive head rushes or I'd pass out. I had a whole bunch of health problems. I could go on. Insomnia.
from
I had all kinds.
rashes.
So these rashes that I couldn't get rid of. I'd get these coughs that would last months, really incessant coughs. Had all these struggles that I couldn't figure out until I started to learn about the brain. Because what regulates all of those activities and actions that you have?
And it's so funny because we have this major organ that's controlling everything that goes on and essentially controls our experience in life, right? But we don't know how it functions or how it works, right? Something that is so important to our bodies and how we live and survive, we don't know very much about. And so just the idea of learning about your brain is so, so powerful, and learning how it functions. And once you can see how it functions, you can then analyze how your own brain is functioning.
Because one of the things that I found as I started to research is that most of these things that people are in, and I want to clarify, I'm not against any of the things that I mentioned. No, I'm not against any of them. There are places for everything, and all of them have a certain type of effect. But generally speaking, this is what I saw. All the research and everything people were trying to do, were trying to find external ways to solve internal problems. So things that are not the cause of the problem. And this comes from the diagnosis. The diagnosis is, oh, you have anxiety, you have depression, you have anger issues, you're doing drugs, you're doing all those things. So then they look at what they think is the problem. But the way that I've found through the research of the brain is that those are only symptoms. Those are all symptoms. So if you're searching for a problem to solve a symptom, your result is going to be that you're going to have temporary results to potentially help that symptom. And then life's going to go on and that symptom is going to come back, most likely. If life happens a certain way, then that symptom is going to come back. And that's what I saw happening over and over and over. So my question that kept coming back to me is, what is the core of the problem? What is the source of all of these struggles? That all these things, these behaviors and thought patterns that we have. And what I found is that that's exactly what it is. It's our thought patterns. It's the way our brain perceives that is the core cause of so many of these struggles and problems. It's how our brain, at a cellular level, the neuroscientists in 2018 came out with the top 10 discoveries in neuroscience. And one of them was that every neuron, both in our brain, our heart, and our gut, they all have neurons. Every one of those has memory stored in them, and that memory drives our experience. And as we're growing up as little children, our brain is developing and it's creating these patterns. How many of you ever heard the word neuroplasticity? Yeah, I love it. Neuroplasticity, the ability for the neurons to let go and reconnect in a different way, therefore having a different perception, a different way of reasoning, a different meaning that we give things.
There's a story about an elephant where elephants in a circus, when the elephants are really tiny, they tie a rope from the elephant's neck to a little peg in the ground. And the elephant tries to pull and pull and pull and can just not release itself from that peg. And it tries over and over and over and has a conditioning pattern that is created, a belief that the elephant cannot get away or pull away from that pole. And it's tried so many times that the belief becomes so solidified that when the elephant is grown up and it's tied to that same small pole, it believes it can't pull it. It cannot get free. And that is an example of how we have beliefs that we have thought of from our development, our child development, that we believe that we can't change, and we believe that we're stuck in that same pattern and that we can't pull free, but it's not true.
And so we have a whole bunch of these beliefs, thousands and thousands of them that we've created that are like that elephant that's tied to that little tiny peg that could hold it when it was a little baby, but it could easily just tug on and it would come right back out. And that's where we all are. We're in this place where we're stuck in these patterns of beliefs that hold us back. And so everybody did everybody get the little flyer that has a picture on it? So that little picture, you didn't get one. Let's see.
Cynthia, yeah. Could you go grab that?
She has some more.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you to grab the bigger one.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll just let him do it. So if you look at the back side of it, there's a picture of two dresses, right? So all of these thoughts and beliefs that we have, like we talked about with the elephant, we have thousands and thousands of them. They hold us back. Who believes your brain is more powerful than what you're accessing and using it? All right. I hope I see 100% there. You're absolutely right. And the thing that holds us back is these patterns, these ways our neurons are connected, like that elephant. And I'm going to show you an example. In this picture you have of those two dresses, there should be a little thing in there with a hole in the center. The framework around that dress is what makes you think that those two dresses are two different colors. And so, but it's actually inaccurate. This is a visual representation of what our brain is doing all the time. And our mental health struggles that we have, our depression, our anxiety, our frustrations, our anger, our addictive patterns, they're all because we have a framework of thinking around the experiences that trigger us. It's a framework of thinking. If I can get you to believe that what you're perceiving, what you believe in, is not true, then your behaviors, responses, and in other words, your chemical rewards will change. As a matter of fact, when they scan a brain of someone who is having a panic attack or someone who is having any mental health struggle, OCD, PTSD, trauma-induced, any of those things, and someone who's addicted to a substance, it looks the same. So all these mental illnesses we're having are actually addictions in the brain. Neuroscientists see them as addictions. They're chemical addictions. When you look at the picture, those two dresses look like they're two different colors because of the framework around them. The little piece of paper with a hole in it is to help you remove the framework. So then you can see that within the boxes of those two dresses, they're actually the same color. Everybody see that? Isn't that crazy? Oh, Cynthia, do you have any more? You can raise your hand if you don't have one, and she'll bring one over to you. Yeah, so we have a framework of thinking. In other words, neurologically, It's a bunch of neurons connected a certain way that creates our reasoning, what we use as reasoning. It's a perception on a cellular level, and a combination of cells will create our perception of something.
And it's so interesting because our brain, it works off a reward system. That we get rewarded, we get a chemical reward in our brain. When those neural pathways fire, we feel a chemical reward by doing these behaviors. It seems kind of crazy that you would get a chemical reward from this anxiety or this depression or this illness that you don't want to have in your life. But when we are able to see that, kind of self-analyze and see where this chemical need is coming from and where this deficit is, then we're able to really dive in deeper and change it.
So a neuroscientist would tell you that every action you take and every thought you have is because of a chemical need. It's fulfilling a chemical need. And so as I started to learn this and started to learn these concepts, I started to put together this model that I could walk someone through that would help them to start to shift and change their perceptions. And through the study I was doing, I found out that if someone can have a series of experiences mentally and chemically, that we could change so much of their perception that we could get rid of, gone, non-existent mental illnesses. It's incredible. Thank you.
And think for a second of those people when we asked at the beginning if you knew someone who struggled with a mental illness. Think of them and what their life would be if they were able to get rid of that mental illness. How it would change, what experience that they would be able to experience after that. And how would it change your life if you were able to see that in someone else?
So I want everybody, we got to have an experience. I want everybody to have a little bit of an experience. We already had one because we looked at the little picture. How many of you were surprised to see the dresses were the same color? Right? Good. That surprise feeling that you had is a chemical experience. I helped you create a chemical experience in your brain that made you listen stronger and want more. I did it on purpose so that it would stick, so you wouldn't forget. And even what I'm saying now, I'm doing to get it to stick even more. It's a process. So neuro-linguistic programming has a big part to play in how I use this to help people understand their brain. And then when you start to understand your brain, when you go into life and you have triggers, it's a completely different experience. How many have been stuck in patterns you don't want to be in? Right? You're stuck because you don't know what to do. You don't understand what's going on. So how do you get unstuck? Learn about what's going on. And your conscious mind will start to interrupt your subconscious patterns. So everybody has that little paper that has the hole in it. We're going to use that for a second. Did you ever get one? She's right there. Raise your hand if you don't have one. Because we want to have you help you have another experience. And while you're getting them, I'll tell you, as I started learning this stuff, I started to see some miraculous experiences. I started to see changes in people that were mind-blowing. And even before I saw a lot of it, I knew it would work. There was something inside me telling me this will work. Because when you move all of your childhood maps, all of those things that developed as a child, when you get those out of your way, you get to the center of each cell, and that each cell has all truth built into it. And that truth can be accessed by moving, like we have the picture, moving the framework out of the way. The framework's pretty extensive. So you got to learn the process of doing it. The people that were doing some of these processes and therapies and things, they were focused on the symptom of the problem. So they couldn't get to the point, or they didn't focus on teaching the person the process that their brain can go through and what it's already going through. So they'd have an understanding of that, so they themselves could face whatever situation came, because they could go through that process with any situation. And I was lucky enough in this time when I started doing this to run into Dr. Oliver, who spoke earlier. Dr. Oliver is amazing. This is his neuro clinic. And I explained to him what I was doing, and he's had extensive study in functional neurology. And he heard what I was saying, and he said, "That sounds amazing. and it aligns with everything I've learned in neurology. I want you to start working with my clients, my patients. So I started working with his patients, and right off the bat, the first person I worked with had a major shift, total different person. And the mother of that child said, that was incredible. They are a different person. And then I helped the next client and the next client. And pretty soon, Dr. Oliver said, you got to open an office here and start working with my patients every day. So for 2 years, I got to work with people one-on-one and shift their thinking, shift their perceptions. And I would tell them, and I would sit down for 7 hours with one person, and y'all think, whoa, 7 hours. It goes by like that because of the way I'm playing in their brain, helping them see and discover things they've always wanted. Their brains always wanted to understand it. And so I would go through this process, and then they'd walk out of there, and there would be things in their life that were completely gone. And suicide was the number one that was the most measurable. They'd walk in, and they'd have suicidal ideations. They would walk out and never, ever again have those. They were gone. They were reprogrammed. It is amazing. So what would you do if you were me, and you're in this office, and you're working with people one-on-one, and you're seeing miracles for people every day? How do I get this to the world, right? And I started having clients come back to me and say, what did you do to me? Well, first their spouses would come back to me and say, what did you do to them? Because they are a different person. And what did you do to me? I want to learn how to do that. And I asked you a question earlier. How many of you try to help people to understand things, make changes in their lives, and they can't do it? Right? And it's about how our brain works and learning how our brain works. And so I started teaching courses to other people. And I got to help psychologists and social workers and moms and dads and people start to learn this process. And it's actually a pretty simple process. So everybody has your card. And I want you to write down 2 things on that card that you would like to have changed in your life. This is a fun part. Whatever you want. Anything you want
in
changed.
my life or someone else's life?
Well, I should clarify. The reason you want something changed in someone else's life is because it will change yours. It will change your experience by having that. So you can write down someone else's life, but really it's your life. So write down 2 things that you would like changed on that. And while you're writing that, I also want to mention Jared Sinclair, who is a major sponsor here. Oh, the other banner's gone. The big banner. He's one of our major sponsors to this conference. He's also a facilitator that has gone through my course. If you want to learn about the combination of nutrition, supplements, health, and the brain, he's in Bountiful, and I don't care where you live, it's worth traveling to go there. Jared Sinclair. He does a podcast too. And he is incredible. These are 2 incredible resources, functional neurology and some functional medicine, and then also functional medicine or supplements and how to take care of your body and do things like that. Well, I'll go into that more in a minute. He's with us in a booth, and he has a booth too, so you can talk to both of them. But, okay, so you have 2 things written there that you would like changed in your life. So for a minute, I want you to think through what would change, what that change would do to your life. What are some of the funnest things? What are the most exciting things that it would happen if those 2 things changed?
And the deeper that you take this question, the deeper the change will be, because so many times we want to answer a question like, oh, I'll be happier, right? But going deeper and diving in and really seeing why you want that thing will create a higher reasoning that will increase your chances of being able to change.
So you write down those things, you think about for a minute, okay, who else would it affect if those things changed? Who else would it affect in your life if those things changed? When you think about that for a minute, maybe write it down if you have some extra paper. There might not be room on the little card. And then what's some of your favorite things that would be different if you made that change in 10 years from now? How would it affect you in 10 years from now if those changes happened, if they occurred? And while you're thinking about that, I'll talk a little bit more about the neuroscience. Who likes the neuroscience behind their brain? The chemicals that you experience when I ask you a question, I can direct them to light up the parts of your brain that are inflamed. Because the mental illness and the struggles that we have, the addictions, they relate to inflammation in the brain. They relate to a miscommunication that's going on in your brain. So I can ask you questions that will encourage and light up the parts of your brain that haven't been used for a while. They're not functioning very well. Dr. Oliver can do it physically. So he has the equipment and the technology that actually forces signals into the areas of your brain that don't function well and through your body. So he has ways of measuring those, finding out where the dysfunction is, or in other words, the inflammation. And then he will determine what you can do physiologically, exercises, movements, different things, to make it so that you will start to light up that part of your brain more. So if you struggle at a really deep level, or you know someone who does, and they've been trying all the things that mainstream has to offer,
maybe suffer from trauma or PTSD or more severe things like that,
then that is a huge resource. And he is amazing. If you didn't hear him speak earlier, then get the audio recordings that we have of these presentations. Anomic aphasia. Where's my anomic aphasia person? There we go. Word retrieval. Injuries on the right side. Anyway. Okay. So, and he's in Lehigh, by the way. People travel from other countries to come see him, by the way. And the guy's phenomenal. He's a genius. Yeah. Okay. So now on your paper, I want you to flip over the paper. On the other side of the paper, I want you to write what needs to change in your brain so that those things can happen. Those two things you wrote on the front side, write what needs to change in your brain for those things to happen. Because a lot of our thinking is through the external world. We think that the external things need to happen for us to change our experience or help someone else change their experience. But our brain is incredibly powerful at influencing this external world. It's also incredibly powerful at keeping us from being able to change this external world. So you have a couple things there that your brain could change, could do, that would help you get towards those things. The process that we go through would teach you what your brain is doing and what holds you back and what keeps you from being able to influence and affect those things that you want changed in your life.
And one of the funnest things that we do is me and my dad together, we teach group sessions and do family sessions. And that's so fun, especially with a family environment, because our maps and the way that we see things and think about things are intertwined with each other. And so we're able to go in and kind of help each other unravel with each other this chemical experience that's going on, and being able to kind of teach them a new language in a way of being able to see how their brain functions and works. And then they can then together as a family kind of go through that experience and do the process on each other and with each other. And that is the life that we live together, of being able to walk each other through the process. When one of us is struggling or trying to figure something out, we walk them through, and it's a blast. It's really amazing.
The other thing we do is we teach courses and we give certifications for what we call the NAAP model. It's called Neuro Auto-Associative Programming. It should be on all of your handouts. You can become certified with that. If you're someone who likes to serve and help other people, if you've been sitting here and you've had a feeling that draws you towards this ability to help other people, I invite you to follow it And then anything else that comes up, any of those maps that get in your way, any of that reasoning that slows you down, just toss it aside, break through it, take action, move towards it. Because these emotions we have, these chemicals that are driving our experience, can easily get out of control. But they can also easily come back, and you can get them, and you can help other people at levels that you never imagined. That's what I get to do. That's what we get to do. And it's changed so many lives in massive ways. And I can't stop. I have to help the world figure this out. I think that technology, and we can talk a lot about what it's done to our brain, has come so that we can get over this hump. We can figure it out. The awareness comes up. People's willingness to learn and to grow and to figure things out and fix things is going up and up. With that same trajectory is the awareness and the desire. And I think it's to bring us all to a new place, the whole earth, where we have a new level of awareness and we live life in this full and this fulfilling and this genuine and real place, and to bring every other soul to it. I think that's what it's for. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but that's what I'm going to believe because of the way it feels when I believe it. And I encourage everybody to find things that make you feel a certain way and believe them. Really believe them and go after it.
And we know after hearing this presentation, you guys are going to go back into your regular lives, and your focus is going to change away from all of this and all this change that can happen. And so we want to encourage you now to take an action to be able to go towards that change. And I don't know how many of you downloaded the Neuro app that goes along with Be Healthy Utah when you come in. But if you are interested in coming to a group session or just learning more, we have our booth, of course. But if you want to pull out the app and send us a message, it'll send a direct text message. You can text Be Healthy Utah or BHU.
Yeah, if you want to text the number that's on your flyer, BHU, then we'll get that as a message that you're here and you want to stay in contact. And then we'll be able to keep providing and giving you opportunities. If you go to our website, you'll see a whole bunch of testimonials. I have so many testimonials, and these people are all happy to talk to you. Every one of them, super happy to talk to you. And I have a whole bunch of facilitators that have gone through it themselves. All the facilitators came from being clients. They all came as a client, and it changed them so much they wanted it for other people. That's where they all came from. Cynthia's here today. There's a handful of others that we have, and all of them would love even a phone call. I'll give you their direct cell numbers because they love to tell people about it. And I have a lot of them, a lot. I'll never wear out from having them. So thank you so much for having us. This has been so fun, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.